The wine glass trembled slightly in my hand as my brother Kyle threw his head back and laughed. We sat at Mother's dining table, the remnants of pot roast between us, and I had just offered to invest $20,000 in his startup. His face was red with amusement. "We don't need your pocket change," he said, wiping his eyes. Mother reached over and patted my hand. "Sweetheart, this is serious business. Kyle needs real investors, not your situation." I smiled quietly, my phone buzzing in my pocket. The message from my assistant read, "Confirmed. We're his largest investor. 50 million committed." I excused myself from the table, claiming I needed the restroom. Kyle had already turned back to Mother, pulling up his laptop to show her the projections. I could hear him from the hallway, his voice bright with enthusiasm, talking about market penetration and user acquisition costs. Mother made soft sounds of approval, telling him how proud Dad would have been if he were still alive to see this. Instead of going to the bathroom, I slipped out the front door into the cool Seattle evening. The street was quiet, just the distant sound of traffic on the main road. I pulled out my phone and dialed Marcus. "Hey," he answered on the first ring. "How's dinner?" "Draft the withdrawal notices," I said. There was a pause. "Are you sure?" "The technology is actually promising. TechStream has real potential." I leaned against Mother's porch railing, looking at the house where I grew up. The same house where I'd always been the disappointment. Where Kyle was the golden child with his MBA from Stanford, and I was the girl who dropped out of her master's program to chase some crazy investment ideas. They had no idea that those crazy ideas had made me $200 million. "Pull the committed future tranches," I told Marcus. "Leave the 15 million already invested for now. Let's see how this plays out." "Got it. I'll have the documents ready by morning." I ended the call and stood there for another minute, composing myself. 8 years ago, I started with $5,000 and a hunch about a small AI company nobody else believed in. That investment returned 40 times. I learned fast, moved quickly, and created Apex Ventures LLC as a shell corporation because I discovered early that being a young woman in venture capital meant being taken less seriously. Better to be mysterious than dismissed. Now I was 34 years old, worth more than I ever imagined, and still living in a modest apartment in Capitol Hill, driving a Honda Civic, wearing clothes from regular stores. Nobody knew. Not my friends, not my family. I told everyone I worked in marketing at a small firm. It was easier that way. When I returned to the dining room, Kyle was showing Mother photographs of his new office space downtown. Exposed brick, standing desks, a coffee bar, very startup chic. "The lease is $30,000 a month," he said proudly. "But our mystery investor believes in us. Some huge fund called Apex Ventures. They committed 50 million. Mother's eyes widened. $50 million? Across 3 tranches, Kyle explained. "We already got the first 15 million. Another 20 million comes next week, and the final 15 in 3 months. It's going to change everything." Mother turned to me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Isn't that wonderful, Cheryl? Maybe Kyle can get you a job there once they're more established. Perhaps as a receptionist or something?" Kyle laughed. "I don't think we're hiring at that level yet, Mom." I took a long sip of wine and said nothing. The next morning, Kyle's phone rang at 7 o'clock. I knew because he called me at 7:15, his voice tight with panic. "Cheryl, do you know anyone in venture capital? I was at a real estate closing for a property investment in Bellevue. Good morning to you too, Kyle. This is serious. Apex Ventures just sent withdrawal notices. They're pulling out." "All of it?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Not the 15 million we already have, but the future commitments. $35 million just disappeared. Our CFO is losing his mind. We have maybe 6 months of runway now. Everything was planned around that second tranche. Payroll, product development, the marketing campaign, everything." "That's unfortunate," I said. "But I thought you didn't need pocket change?" Silence on the other end. Then his voice changed, harder. "This is serious, Cheryl. I'm trying to build something real here. If you know anyone who can help, now would be the time." "You made it clear yesterday what you think of my resources," I said. "Good luck, Kyle." I hung up. 2 weeks passed. I monitored everything from a distance through my normal channels. Kyle was scrambling, pitching desperately to other investors. But Apex Ventures had a reputation as a smart fund with excellent due diligence. Our withdrawal spooked everyone. The whispers in the tech community went like this: if Apex pulled out, something must be wrong with TechStream. Kyle laid off 12 of his 30 employees. His co-founder, a sharp engineer named David, threatened to quit. His VP of engineering actually did quit, taking 3 key developers with him. Marcus asked me twice if I wanted to reconsider. Both times I said no. Then Mother called, insisting on another family dinner to support Kyle through this difficult time. I almost declined, but something made me accept. Maybe I wanted to see if they'd finally acknowledge me. Maybe I was just tired of hiding. This dinner was different. Kyle looked exhausted, his eyes shadowed. The food sat mostly untouched on our plates. Mother jumped in immediately. "Cheryl, Kyle needs help. Surely you must know someone in the business world who could connect him with investors?" "I offered to invest," I said. You both laughed. Kyle's fork clattered against his plate. $20,000? That's insulting. I need real money. Millions, not whatever you've managed to save. "Don't be dramatic, Kyle," Mother said. "Cheryl, surely you understand he didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Do you know anyone who could help?" I'd had 2 glasses of wine. I was tired of pretending. I understand venture capital quite well, actually. Kyle scoffed. "You work in marketing at some tiny company." "Do I?" Mother's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" I realized I'd said too much. "Nothing. Never mind." But Mother was like a dog with a bone. She kept pressing, interrogating, her voice getting sharper. In the chaos of the conversation, she suddenly grabbed my phone off the table. "Mother, give that back." She was already looking at the screen. An email notification glowed there. "Apex Ventures portfolio review meeting scheduled." Her face changed. "Apex Ventures? That's Kyle's investor." Kyle snatched the phone, his fingers swiping through my emails. I watched his expression shift from confusion to understanding to rage. "You?" His voice was barely a whisper. "You're Apex Ventures?" I tried to explain that I'd built the fund over years, that I'd invested in his company because the technology was genuinely good, that I'd withdrawn because working with someone who openly disrespected me was untenable. They weren't listening. Mother's voice rose to a shout. "You destroyed your brother's company out of spite?" Neighbors probably heard. Kyle was pacing, his hands in his hair. "I can't believe this. My own sister sabotaged me. I invested because your tech was solid," I said. "I withdrew because you made it clear what you thought of me." "This is illegal," Kyle said. "I'm calling my lawyer. It's my money. I can invest or withdraw as I choose." Mother stepped closer, her face twisted with anger. "How do you even have that kind of money? Did you steal it? What did you do, Cheryl?" The accusation stung worse than anything else. I explained my investment history, the companies I'd backed, the returns I'd earned. They stared at me like I was speaking another language. "You've always been jealous of Kyle," Mother said. "Always in his shadow. So you found a way to hurt him." Kyle pulled out his phone. "I'm suing you for tortious interference and emotional distress. You invested specifically to sabotage me later. You planned this from the start." "That's not true." "Get out," Mother said. "Get out of my house." I drove home in a daze. My phone buzzed constantly, but I ignored it until I got to my apartment. Then I saw the email that made my blood run cold. Kyle had actually filed a lawsuit. $50 million in damages. Claiming I'd fraudulently induced him to rely on my investment, then withdrew maliciously with the specific intent to destroy his company. I called my attorney, Patricia Hartman, at 9 o'clock that night. She listened to everything, then sighed. "This is frivolous," she said, "but it's going to be expensive and time-consuming to fight, and he's clearly going for maximum publicity. What do I do?" "We defend. We show you had every legal right to withdraw your investment. We prove there was no malice, just a business decision. Will that work?" "It should, but juries can be unpredictable, especially with family drama involved." I didn't sleep that night. 3 days after the lawsuit was filed, the article appeared. I saw it first thing in the morning when I checked TechCrunch over coffee. The headline made my stomach drop. Mystery Investor's Family Betrayal. Sister Destroys Brother's Startup. Kyle had given an interview. The whole thing was there in painful detail. His excitement about his company. The promise of the Apex Ventures investment. His sister, who'd always been jealous of his success. The sudden, cruel withdrawal that decimated his business. He played the victim perfectly. Mother was quoted too. She's always resented his accomplishments. I never imagined she'd go this far. The article didn't name me directly, calling me only the anonymous wealthy sister, but in the small world of Seattle tech, people were already connecting the dots. My phone started ringing before I finished reading. The first call was from Jason Whitmore, CEO of a biotech company I'd invested in 2 years ago. Cheryl, I just saw the TechCrunch piece. Is that about you? It's complicated, I said. Listen, the board is concerned. If you're mixing business with personal vendettas, that raises questions about judgment. We might need to discuss finding alternative investors. 2 more portfolio company CEOs called with similar concerns. By noon, one had formally requested I divest from their company. They didn't want the negative publicity. Marcus came to my apartment that afternoon with more bad news. Someone leaked your full identity to the blogs. Your name is everywhere now. He showed me his tablet. Cheryl Hamilton, the angel investor who destroyed her brother. My LinkedIn photo stared back at me from a dozen different websites. The comment sections were brutal. Some people defended me, saying I had every right to withdraw my investment. But most condemned me. Wealthy, heartless sister ruins hard-working brother's dream. My phone buzzed with messages from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some were supportive. Most were confused or angry. Amy, my best friend since college, called that evening. Why didn't you tell me? Tell you what? That you were wealthy. That you ran a venture capital fund. Cheryl, I've known you for 12 years. I shared everything with you. My divorce, my financial struggles, everything. And you never mentioned you were worth millions? It was complicated. I wanted to keep it private. Private? We're supposed to be best friends. This isn't private. This is lying. I feel like I don't even know you. Her voice was cold. The call ended badly. Another friendship damaged. The professional consequences mounted quickly. A planned investment in a promising biotech startup fell through. The founder sent a polite email. Given recent events and questions about your judgment, we've decided to pursue other investors. 2 more portfolio companies requested divestment. One CEO was blunt. What if we disagree on strategy, and you punish us like you did your brother? 8 years of building credibility, gone in 72 hours. Kyle wasn't done. He launched a social media campaign, posting videos explaining his side. The videos went viral. Hashtags started trending. Justice for Kyle. He painted himself as the underdog entrepreneur crushed by a vindictive family member. Then Mother appeared in one of his videos. She was crying, sitting in her living room, the same room where we'd had family dinners for decades. My daughter has broken my heart, she said to the camera. I raised her to be kind and supportive. I don't know who she's become. Money has changed her into someone I don't recognize. I watched the video alone in my apartment, tears streaming down my face. My own mother, telling the world I was a monster. Marcus texted, "You need to respond. This narrative is destroying you." He was right. I reached out to Lauren Price, a respected tech journalist known for fair reporting. She agreed to an interview. The night before the interview, Patricia called. Kyle amended the lawsuit. What do you mean? He's now claiming fraud. That you created shell corporations specifically to hide your identity from him. That you entrapped him into accepting investment you planned to withdraw all along. He's seeking $100 million in damages. $100 million. My throat closed. Can he do that? He can claim anything. Whether he can prove it is another matter. But Cheryl, these are serious allegations. If a jury believes him, there could be criminal implications. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. I didn't do any of that. I know. But the interview with Lauren Price happens tomorrow. Anything you say publicly can be used against you in court. I strongly advise you to cancel. I sat in silence, weighing my options. Cancel the interview, and let Kyle's narrative be the only one people heard. Or do the interview, and risk giving his lawyers ammunition. I'm doing the interview, I said. I can't just stay silent while he destroys my reputation. Against my legal advice, noted for the record. The interview took place in a coffee shop in Fremont. Lauren was professional, her questions direct but fair. I explained my investment history, how shell corporations were standard practice for privacy in venture capital. I walked her through my relationship with Kyle, years of being dismissed and belittled. Did you withdraw the investment out of revenge? She asked. I chose my words carefully. I withdrew because the working relationship was untenable. You can't successfully partner with someone who has openly stated they don't respect or value you. So it was personal? It was professional. Personal feelings informed a professional decision. The interview aired that evening. Response was mixed. Some people finally understood my perspective, but many still sided with Kyle. And Patricia was right. Clips from the interview appeared in Kyle's legal filings within hours, highlighted sentences used to support his claims. The next morning, everything got worse. I had a business partner in Apex Ventures, Graham Foster. He'd contributed 20% of the initial capital when I formed the fund. He'd been a silent partner, letting me run operations while he focused on his other businesses. We rarely spoke beyond quarterly updates. He called an emergency meeting. We met in a conference room in a downtown office building. Graham brought his own lawyer. That should have been my first warning. This situation is untenable, Graham said without preamble. The fund is losing value because of your personal drama. You need to step back. Step back from my company? Our company, he corrected. And you're destroying its value. I'm proposing you take a leave of absence while this lawsuit resolves. Absolutely not. His lawyer slid a document across the table. If you refuse, Mr. Foster will call for a vote to remove you as managing partner. I stared at Graham. You can't be serious. Read your operating agreement. If the managing partner's actions bring disrepute that materially harms the business, other partners can vote on removal. I've spoken with the other investors. They're with me on this. That night, I pulled out the Apex Ventures operating agreement and read through it with growing dread. The clause was there. I'd signed it years ago, never imagining it would be used against me. Graham had rounded up support from the two smaller partners who'd invested in the fund. Together, they had enough votes. Even Marcus seemed distant. When I asked if he was staying, he looked uncomfortable. Cheryl, I have a family. If Apex falls apart, I need to think about their security. Everyone was abandoning me. The knock on my door came at 8 o'clock that evening. I looked through the peephole and saw Mother. She wasn't alone. Kyle stood beside her, and behind them, a notary in a suit. I opened the door slowly. What's this? Mother pushed past me into the apartment. We're here with a solution. The notary set up a portable table. Kyle pulled out a document, multiple pages stapled together. Simple terms, Kyle said. You transfer $35 million to TechStream immediately. You sign over additional assets totaling $15 million more as compensation for damages. And you issue a public apology, admitting you acted maliciously. Are you insane? In exchange, he continued as if I hadn't spoken. I dropped the lawsuit. You want $50 million? Mother's voice was cold. You owe him this. You tried to ruin him. I invested in his company. My own money. I can withdraw my own investment. Kyle leaned forward. And now you'll pay for the damage you caused. Or we'll take it all in court. Your choice. I looked at the document more carefully. The terms were outrageous. More than I'd even withdrawn. This is extortion. This is justice, Mother said. Sign it or lose everything. We have evidence. Kyle pulled out his phone, showed me screenshots of emails between me and Marcus. They'd been taken out of context, but they could look bad to a jury. One message from me. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I'd written that when I first realized TechStream was Kyle's company, genuinely curious how he'd do. But isolated like this, it looked like I was planning something. How did you get these? Kyle smirked. Discovery. But discovery hadn't happened yet. The lawsuit was only weeks old. I looked at Mother, realization dawning. You went through my apartment. She didn't deny it. I still have a key from when I helped you move in 3 years ago. They'd come into my home without permission, gone through my computer, photographed my private correspondence. My own mother had violated my privacy. Get out, I said quietly. Sign the document, Mother said. Get out of my home. Kyle's face hardened. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But I'm not giving in to extortion. Leave. Now. They left, Mother's final words hanging in the air. You're no longer my daughter. When you lose everything, don't come crawling back. I locked the door behind them and slid down to the floor. My hands were shaking. I pulled out my phone to call Patricia, to ask about filing a police report. But would it matter? Mother had a key. I'd given her permission to have it. The legal waters were murky. That night, I got an email from Graham. The partners were voting tomorrow on my removal from Apex Ventures. The company I'd built from nothing. My life's work. I sat in my apartment in darkness, wondering if any of this was worth it. My family hated me. My business was being taken. My reputation was destroyed. The fight was destroying me, but surrendering felt like dying. The vote happened over video conference. I joined from my apartment, my face on one square of the screen, while Graham and the other partners appeared in their own boxes. The formality of it felt surreal. Graham presented the motion. We're here to vote on the removal of Cheryl Hamilton as managing partner of Apex Ventures LLC, pursuant to Section 7.3 of our operating agreement. I was given 5 minutes to speak. I explained everything: the years of work, the success rate, the growth of the fund. How this lawsuit was a personal family matter that had nothing to do with my professional judgment. You let personal feelings affect business decisions, one of the smaller partners interrupted. That's disqualifying, regardless of the legal outcome. The vote was called. 4 in favor of removal, 1 against. The 1 was me. I was out. I retained my equity ownership, but I had no operational control anymore. Apex Ventures, the company I'd created 8 years ago with my first successful exit, was no longer mine to run. Graham was now managing partner. The financial consequences hit immediately. Without management fees from Apex, my income dropped dramatically. I was still wealthy on paper, but most of my assets were tied up in illiquid investments. Legal fees were mounting. Patricia's firm had already billed $200,000, and we hadn't even started discovery. I looked at my bank accounts and realized I might need to sell properties to cover costs. Patricia called 2 days after the vote with strange news. We had an investigator looking into TechStream's background, she said. Standard due diligence for the lawsuit. He found something odd. What? The core technology Kyle is using, the proprietary algorithm that makes TechStream valuable, it looks very similar to code from another startup, a company called NeuralPath that shut down 2 years ago. Similar how? Nearly identical in some places. NeuralPath's founder, Daniel Brennan, died in a car accident. The company dissolved. He had no heirs, so the intellectual property should have gone into the public domain or been properly licensed, but there's no record of Kyle licensing anything. My stomach tightened. Are you saying Kyle stole it? I'm saying there are serious questions about the provenance of his technology. If he did take it without authorization, his entire company is built on fraudulent grounds. That would destroy his lawsuit. And his company. But Cheryl, here's the problem. You invested in that company. Apex Ventures performed due diligence and approved the investment. If TechStream is built on stolen IP, it makes you look either incompetent or complicit. I understood immediately. Using this information was a nuclear option. It would destroy Kyle, but the fallout would hit me too. I could lose the entire $15 million still invested. My reputation as an investor would be shattered. This is mutually assured destruction, Patricia said. Use it only if you're desperate. I asked her to sit on the information for now. That week, 3 more disasters struck. First, a major tech publication ran a feature profile on Kyle. The headline, "The Entrepreneur Betrayed by Family." It painted him as a sympathetic figure, fighting against the odds. The story went viral. VCs who wouldn't take my calls were suddenly interested in meeting with Kyle. Second, Amy went on a podcast. She talked about our friendship, how she'd felt deceived by my secrecy. The host asked if wealthy people could really be trusted. Amy's answer: I think when you hide something that fundamental, it says something about your character. Third, Marcus officially resigned. He'd been offered a position working directly with Graham at Apex. My last ally was gone. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating properly. I'd lost 15 pounds in a month. My doctor prescribed anti-anxiety medication and warned I was heading for a breakdown. I was 34 years old and watching everything I'd built crumble. Late one night, alone in my apartment, I pulled out the investigator's report about the stolen IP, one email to Kyle's other investors, and I could end this. His house of cards would collapse. But so would mine. My phone buzzed. Patricia. Trial is set for 4 months from now. We need a strategy. Our current strategy was straightforward. Prove I had every legal right to withdraw my investment. Show there was no malice. Just a business decision based on an untenable relationship. But Kyle's lawyers were good. They'd built a narrative of premeditated destruction. A jury might believe the brother over the sister. I put the investigator's report back in my desk drawer and locked it. 2 days later, I came home from a therapy appointment to find my apartment door slightly open. Heart pounding, I called the police. They came, searched, found nothing stolen. But someone had been inside. My filing cabinet in the home office had been rifled through. Papers were slightly out of order, and the investigator's report about the stolen IP, the one I'd locked in my desk, was gone. Only a few people knew about that investigation. Patricia's team, the investigator himself, and me. Someone had broken in specifically to take that report. The next day, I received a cease and desist letter from Kyle's attorneys. They claimed I was hiring investigators to harass him. They threatened additional charges: stalking, defamation, abuse of process. How did they know about the investigator? Patricia confirmed her office hadn't disclosed anything. We were still months from discovery. I asked if my apartment could be bugged. She recommended a security consultant. The consultant found 3 listening devices. One in my living room behind a picture frame, one in my home office in a potted plant, one in my bedroom inside a smoke detector. These are high-end, he said. Professionally installed, probably within the last month. Someone had been listening to everything. My conversations with Patricia, my calls with Marcus, everything. The consultant traced the purchase of the equipment. It led to a shell company registered in Delaware. That company was owned by another shell. It took days of digging, but finally, we traced it back to an LLC owned by Graham Foster. My former business partner had been spying on me. I called Patricia immediately. She listened to everything, then said quietly, "This changes things, but we need to understand why. Why would Graham bug my apartment? He already had control of Apex Ventures. What more did he want?" I stayed up all night thinking, piecing together the timeline. When had Kyle's company first come to Apex for funding? Graham was the one who'd brought the deal. He said a colleague had recommended it. I'd assumed it came through normal channels. I did the due diligence, loved the technology, didn't realize it was Kyle's company at first. What if Graham had known all along? I hired a new investigator, Janet Cross, and gave her a simple question: how did Graham and Kyle meet? It took her 3 days to find the answer. They'd met at a tech conference 18 months ago. Before TechStream had even approached Apex for funding, there were photos on social media. Graham and Kyle having drinks at a hotel bar. Kyle had tagged Graham in a post. Great mentorship conversation with a real industry expert. Why would Graham mentor Kyle unless he knew Kyle was my brother? Janet dug deeper. Found more connections. Graham had been researching me, my family, my background, all around the same time he met Kyle. I called Graham directly. "Did you set me up?" His voice was smooth, unbothered. "Cheryl, you're starting to sound paranoid. The stress must be getting to you. You knew Kyle was my brother." Silence. Then, "Can you prove that?" I couldn't. Just circumstantial evidence. Photos, timelines, speculation. "Even if you're right," Graham said, What are you going to do? You've already lost Apex. The trial will finish you financially, and Kyle will never believe you anyway. He thinks you're the villain. That's not changing. He hung up. I stared at my phone, understanding settling over me like ice water. Graham had engineered this entire situation. He'd wanted control of Apex Ventures and couldn't just buy me out. So he found my weak spot. My family, my brother. He'd encouraged Kyle to seek funding, probably even coached him on the pitch. He'd waited for me to invest, knowing I would once I saw the solid technology. Then he'd somehow encouraged the confrontation. Maybe he'd even suggested to Kyle that family money was beneath him, got him to dismiss me at that dinner. Once I withdrew, Graham had everything he needed. A scandal to turn the other partners against me. A reason to remove me. And now he controlled my company, my portfolio, my life's work. The trial was in 2 days. I had circumstantial evidence but no proof. Kyle thought I was a villain. Mother had disowned me. My business was gone. My reputation destroyed. Graham had won. I sat alone in my hotel room, having moved out of my apartment, and considered whether fighting was even worth it anymore. Maybe I should just accept Kyle's settlement demand. Pay the money. Apologize. Make it all go away. But something in me refused to surrender. The morning of my interview with Lauren Price, Patricia called at 6 o'clock. Don't do it. We've been through this. Anything you say can be used in the lawsuit. You're giving Kyle's lawyers ammunition. I'm already losing, Patricia. My silence is being interpreted as guilt. At least this way, people hear my side. Against my advice. Noted. The interview happened in a quiet coffee shop. Lauren was professional, her recorder between us on the table. I kept my answers measured, factual. Explained the shell corporations, standard practice in venture capital for privacy, talked about years of being dismissed by my family. When she asked if I withdrew out of revenge, I said the working relationship had become untenable. She pressed. So it was personal? It was a business decision, informed by personal knowledge, I said carefully. The interview aired that evening. Some people finally understood. But Kyle's lawyers had clips edited and filed within 3 hours. The real crisis came the next day. Graham called an emergency meeting. Not at the Apex offices anymore, those weren't mine to use. We met at his lawyer's conference room. The situation has progressed, Graham said, his tone almost friendly. I've been in discussions with Kyle. My blood went cold. Why would you talk to Kyle? Because TechStream is an interesting company despite its current challenges. I've offered to provide bridge financing. With whose money? Apex Ventures money, your former fund. It's a good investment opportunity. I understood then. Graham was using my fund, the company I'd built, to finance my brother's lawsuit against me. The audacity was breathtaking. That's a conflict of interest. No, his lawyer interjected. You're no longer managing partner. You have no operational control. Graham, as the current managing partner, has full authority to make investment decisions. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood up and left. That evening, Kyle called. His voice was different, less angry, almost conciliatory. Cheryl, I'll drop the lawsuit if you publicly apologize and pay $10 million. Much less than his previous demand of $50 million. Why? I've found new investors. I don't need your money anymore. But I need you to admit you were wrong, that you tried to hurt me. Who are your new investors? That's confidential. But I knew. Graham. Using Apex's capital, money that was partially mine, to fund Kyle while suing me. I won't apologize for something I didn't do, I said. Then I'll see you in court. The trial was now 48 hours away. I met with Patricia to review strategy. She laid out the basics. We'd prove I had legal right to withdraw, that there was no binding commitment, that my decision was business-related, not malicious. Will it work? I asked. It should. But juries are unpredictable with family cases. They might side with Kyle on pure emotion. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Graham's manipulation, how he'd engineered everything. But I had no proof, just circumstantial evidence and intuition. At 2 a.m, my phone buzzed with an email. No sender name, no subject line, just an attachment, and 5 words. Back out or Dad burns. I opened the attachment with shaking hands. Bank records, documents. All showing my father, who died 5 years ago, had allegedly embezzled money from his company. The documents looked official, professional, convincing. They were also completely fabricated. Dad had been honest his entire life, but these forged records would destroy his memory if they went public. Mother would be devastated. His name, his legacy, everything he'd worked for, would be mud. The threat was clear. Drop the lawsuit defense, stop fighting, or Dad's reputation gets destroyed. I called Patricia at 2:30 in the morning. They're threatening to release fake documents about my father, I said, my voice breaking. Who? I don't know. The email was anonymous. Forward it to me immediately. This is criminal. Extortion, forgery, defamation of the dead. But if they release it before we can stop them, the damage is done. Nobody remembers the retraction. They remember the scandal. Patricia was quiet. What do you want to do? The trial started in less than 2 days. I could back out, settle, pay Kyle, apologize, protect Dad's memory, or I could fight and risk everything. I didn't sleep that night. Morning came gray and cold. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone. Patricia had forwarded the email to FBI Cybercrime Division, but they said investigations take time. Nothing would happen before the trial. I thought about Dad, how hard he'd worked, how proud he'd been of his reputation, how devastated he'd been when Kyle and I fought as kids, always trying to make peace. What would he want me to do? At 8 o'clock, I called Patricia. I'm going to trial. I'm testifying. I'm telling the truth about Graham. That's suicide, Patricia said. Without hard evidence, you'll sound like you're making up conspiracy theories. The jury will think you're unstable. Maybe, but I'm not backing down. I'm not letting them win through intimidation. Cheryl, I'm done hiding. I'm done letting people push me around. If I lose, I lose. But I'm going down telling the truth. There was a long pause. Then Patricia said quietly, Okay, let's prepare your testimony. We worked all day, running through questions, anticipating cross-examination. Patricia was thorough, professional, but I could see the worry in her eyes. She thought I was making a mistake. Maybe I was, but I was tired of being afraid. That evening, I got one more anonymous email. This one had photographs attached. Pictures of me meeting with Janet Cross, my investigator, meeting notes about Graham and Kyle. Everything I'd been working on. The message, we see everything you're doing. Last chance to back out. Someone had been following me, photographing me, collecting evidence of my investigation into Graham. I realized with sudden clarity, they weren't just trying to scare me. They were building a counter-narrative. If I accused Graham of manipulation, they'd claim I was the one stalking and harassing them. All that evidence, taken out of context, could make me look unstable, dangerous. I was trapped. Speak out and look crazy. Stay silent and lose. The trial began in 18 hours. I made one decision. I went to a store and bought a small voice recorder, the kind journalists use. If I was going to tell my story, I was going to make sure there was a record. Whatever happened in that courtroom, I wanted the truth preserved. I spent my last night before trial sitting in my hotel room, watching Seattle's lights through the window, wondering if I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. The courthouse was downtown, a gray building that felt appropriately somber. I arrived early with Patricia, both of us carrying briefcases full of documents. Kyle was already there with his legal team, 3 lawyers in expensive suits. Mother sat in the gallery behind Kyle. She didn't look at me. The jury selection had happened the week before. 12 people who would decide my fate. They filed in, ordinary people with regular jobs and families, now responsible for sorting through this mess. The judge, Eileen Rodriguez, was known for running an efficient courtroom. She called us to order at 9 o'clock sharp. Kyle's lead attorney, Martin Bradley, gave the opening statement first. He painted a vivid picture of Kyle as the hardworking entrepreneur with a dream, betrayed by his vindictive sister who invested specifically to gain leverage, then withdrew maliciously to destroy him. The evidence will show, Bradley said, gesturing toward me, that Cheryl Hamilton knew exactly what she was doing. She hid her identity, made promises, and then broke them out of spite. This isn't business. This is revenge. Patricia's opening was simpler. Cheryl Hamilton is a successful investor who made a sound business decision. She invested in technology she believed in. When she discovered the founder had publicly stated he didn't respect or value her contributions, she withdrew. That is her legal right. This lawsuit is about a brother who can't accept that his sister is more successful than he is. The first witness was Kyle. He took the stand wearing a suit that looked new, probably bought for the trial. His testimony was polished, rehearsed. He described his startup, his dreams, the promise of the Apex Ventures investment. When they committed $50 million, it changed everything, he said. We could hire the best people, build the product right. We made commitments based on that funding. And then what happened? Bradley asked. It was pulled. $35 million just disappeared. We had to lay off staff, lost key employees. Our reputation was damaged. Other investors wouldn't touch us. Do you know why the investment was withdrawn? Kyle's voice caught. Good acting. I found out later it was my sister. She invested anonymously, then pulled out after I didn't take her seriously at a family dinner. Patricia's cross-examination was sharp. Mr. Hamilton, did the investment commitment from Apex Ventures include any guaranteed time frame? Well, no, but yes or no, please. No. So legally, the investor could withdraw at any time? Technically, yes, but thank you. And did you know the identity of the investor when you accepted the funding? No. So you had no relationship with this investor, correct? No promises made? That's not the point. She's my sister. A sister you laughed at when she offered to invest. Kyle's face reddened. That was different. She offered $20,000. It was insulting. So you rejected her money when you knew it was hers, but you accepted it when you didn't know? The jury was listening carefully. Score 1 for our side. The trial continued for 3 days. Witnesses testified about TechStream's growth and subsequent struggles. Financial experts argued about damages. Kyle's CFO explained how the withdrawal had disrupted their plans. Then Graham was called as a character witness. I watched him take the stand, swear to tell the truth, and felt rage building in my chest. Bradley asked him about Apex Ventures, about my behavior as managing partner. Cheryl was always competent, Graham said, his voice measured. But this situation revealed instability. Mixing family drama with business decisions shows poor judgment. The other partners and I felt we had no choice but to remove her. Patricia stood for cross-examination. She glanced at me. I nodded slightly. Mr. Foster, how long have you known Kyle Hamilton? Graham hesitated, just for a second. I don't know him personally. You've never met him? Perhaps at an industry event. I can't recall specifically. Patricia approached with a tablet. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence several photographs from social media. She showed the jury the photos. Graham and Kyle at the tech conference. Drinks at a hotel bar. Kyle's post thanking Graham for mentorship. These are from 18 months ago, Patricia said. Before TechStream approached Apex Ventures for funding. Can you explain this mentorship? Graham's composure slipped slightly. I meet with many entrepreneurs. I don't remember every conversation. But you do remember this one, because you brought TechStream to Apex as an investment opportunity, correct? I may have. We see many deals. Did you know Kyle Hamilton was Cheryl Hamilton's brother when you brought this deal to Apex? I don't recall. You don't recall, or you're choosing not to answer? Objection, Bradley said. Harassment. Sustained. Judge Rodriguez said. Move on, Miss Hartman. But the seed was planted. The jury had seen the photos, heard Graham's evasiveness. On the 4th day, I took the stand. Patricia walked me through my background, how I'd built my investment portfolio, the success rate of Apex Ventures, my decision to use shell corporations for privacy, standard practice in the industry. Why did you invest in TechStream? Patricia asked. The technology was solid. I reviewed the code, the market potential, the team. It was a good investment. Did you know it was your brother's company? Not at first. When I realized, I was actually impressed. Kyle is smart. The product was genuinely promising. So why withdraw? I took a breath. At a family dinner, I offered to invest personally. Kyle laughed and said he didn't need my pocket change. My mother agreed, saying he needed serious business people, not my situation. It became clear they didn't respect me, or my judgment. I couldn't partner with someone under those circumstances. Bradley's cross-examination was aggressive. He tried to paint me as vindictive, jealous, manipulative. But I stayed calm, answered honestly. You admit this was personal? He pressed. It was a business decision, based on personal knowledge about the working relationship. You wanted to punish your brother. No. I wanted to protect my investment from a situation where the founder had explicitly stated he didn't value my input. Back and forth for hours. I was exhausted when I finally stepped down. The trial recessed for the day. Patricia and I regrouped in a coffee shop down the street. You did well, she said. But I don't know if it's enough. That night, I made my decision. I called Patricia at 10 o'clock. I want to present the evidence about Graham. Cheryl, we discussed this. It's circumstantial. I don't care. The jury needs to hear it. She sighed. Okay. But there's something else. Janet found new information today. What? Graham didn't just bug your apartment, he also accessed your email server. We have logs showing unauthorized access from an IP address traced to him. That's a federal crime. My heart raced. Can we use it? I've already contacted the FBI. But Cheryl, there's more. The investigator also found evidence about the stolen intellectual property. Daniel Brennan's widow came forward 3 days ago. She's filing her own lawsuit against TechStream, claiming Kyle stole her late husband's code. Everything was unraveling. Kyle's company was built on theft. Graham had orchestrated a conspiracy, and I was caught in the middle. What do we do? I asked. Tomorrow. We put it all on the record. The photographs, the timeline, Graham's bugs, everything. Let the jury see the full picture. And the stolen IP? That's Kyle's problem now, not yours. The next morning, Patricia called a surprise witness. Janet Cross, the investigator. She presented her findings methodically. The photos of Graham and Kyle, the timeline showing they'd met before TechStream approached Apex. The evidence of bugs in my apartment traced to Graham. The unauthorized email access. Bradley objected repeatedly, but Judge Rodriguez allowed it. This goes to motive and credibility, Patricia argued. Mr. Foster orchestrated this entire situation to take control of Apex Ventures. Then Patricia played the recording. The one I'd made when I confronted Graham on the phone. His voice, clear and unmistakable. Even if you're right, what are you going to do? You've already lost Apex. The courtroom was silent. Graham, sitting in the gallery, stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to leave. Sit down, Mr. Foster, Judge Rodriguez said coldly. Bailiff, please ensure Mr. Foster remains in the courtroom. Patricia wasn't done. She called a representative from the FBI's Cybercrime Division. They confirmed an ongoing investigation into Graham for computer fraud, wiretapping, and conspiracy. Kyle's face had gone pale. He whispered urgently to his lawyers. Bradley requested a recess. Judge Rodriguez granted 30 minutes. When we returned, Bradley stood. Your Honor, my client would like to withdraw the lawsuit. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Rodriguez gavelled for silence. On what grounds? Kyle stood, his voice shaking. Because I was wrong. My sister didn't do anything illegal or immoral. I was manipulated by Graham Foster into believing she'd sabotaged me. But the evidence shows he orchestrated this situation to take control of her company. I'm dropping all claims with prejudice. I felt tears starting but pushed them back. Judge Rodriguez looked at me. Miss Hamilton, do you accept? Yes, Your Honor. Then this case is dismissed. She turned to where Graham sat, 2 FBI agents now standing nearby. Mr. Foster, you're advised that you're under federal investigation. I suggest you speak with an attorney. They led Graham out. He didn't look at me. The courtroom cleared slowly. Kyle approached, his eyes red. Cheryl, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't understand. Mother stood behind him, crying. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. I failed you. I believed lies over my own daughter. I didn't have words. The months of pain, the betrayal, the public humiliation. It didn't just disappear with an apology, but they were my family. We have a lot to work through, I said quietly. Kyle nodded. I know, but I want to try. If you'll let me. The media coverage shifted overnight, from villain to victim to vindicated. The tech blogs that had crucified me now ran pieces about Graham's manipulation, about corporate espionage, about how a woman's success had been weaponized against her. But I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on rebuilding. The other Apex Ventures partners called an emergency meeting 3 days after the trial ended. Graham's ownership stake had been frozen, pending criminal proceedings. The FBI had seized his computers, his records, everything. They voted unanimously to restore me as managing partner. Marcus called to apologize. I should have trusted you. I'm sorry. You did what you thought was right for your family, I said. I understand. Do you want your job back? His relief was audible. Really? Really. Kyle and I met for coffee a week later. Just the two of us. No lawyers, no cameras. He looked like he'd aged 5 years. Techstream is probably dead, he said. Mrs. Brennan's lawsuit is solid. I did use Daniel's code. Graham gave it to me, said it was public domain. I trusted him. Did you verify? He shook his head. I was so excited about the technology, I didn't do proper due diligence. That's on me. We sat in silence for a moment. Then I said, what if we make it right? How? We reach out to Mrs. Brennan. We offer a proper licensing agreement, retroactive. We pay her what the code is worth. We rebuild Techstream ethically. Kyle stared at me. Why would you help me after everything I did? Because you're my brother. Because the technology is actually good. And because I'm tired of fighting. We spent the next month negotiating with Mrs. Brennan and her lawyers. She was angry, hurt. Her late husband's work had been stolen. But she was also practical. We offered her 20% equity in Techstream, plus retroactive licensing fees totaling $2 million. She accepted. Kyle restructured the company, brought back the employees he'd laid off. I invested again, this time openly as his sister, not through shell corporations. $20 million. Mother tried to rebuild our relationship. It was slow, painful. She'd believed Kyle over me, sided with him publicly, invaded my privacy. Those wounds didn't heal quickly. But we tried. Family dinners resumed, awkward at first, gradually becoming more natural. Amy called 6 months after the trial ended. I saw the news about Graham. I'm sorry I didn't believe you. You didn't have all the information. Still, I should have trusted you. Can we try again? Friendships, like family, could be rebuilt if both people wanted it. A year later, Techstream launched its product. The technology, properly developed and ethically sourced, was everything Kyle had promised. The company grew. Within 18 months, it was valued at $300 million. Kyle and I became actual partners. He handled operations, I guided strategy and fundraising. We learned to work together, to respect each other's strengths. Mother attended the launch party, proud of both her children. Graham went to prison. Federal charges for computer fraud, wiretapping, conspiracy, securities fraud, 8 years. The judge was not lenient. I ran into him once, before his sentencing, in a courthouse hallway. Why? I asked. You could have just asked to buy more equity. Why all of this? He looked at me with something like contempt. Because you would never have given up control. You built Apex from nothing, and you held it too tight. I needed you gone. And using your family seemed like the easiest path. Was it worth it? He didn't answer. I rebuilt Apex Ventures stronger than before, implemented better oversight, more safeguards, brought in new partners I trusted. The fund grew. Our success rate improved. I also stopped hiding, gave interviews about my journey, talked openly about being a woman in venture capital, about the challenges, about imposter syndrome, and the instinct to make yourself smaller. Other women reached out, young investors looking for mentorship. I started a program helping them navigate the industry. 2 years after the trial, I stood at a conference in San Francisco, giving a keynote speech about my experience. The room was full, maybe 500 people. I talked about building in secret, about hiding success out of fear of judgment, about family betrayal and corporate conspiracy, about losing everything and rebuilding. The biggest lie I believed, I told them, was that I had to hide to succeed. That being visible meant being vulnerable, but hiding made me weak. It gave people like Graham power over me. After the speech, a young woman approached. Maybe 25, nervous. I just raised my first fund, she said. $2 million. I haven't told my family because they don't think I can do it. I smiled. Tell them, don't hide. You'll be amazed how much easier it is to succeed when you're not carrying secrets. She nodded, tears in her eyes. That evening, I had dinner with Kyle and Mother at a restaurant overlooking Elliott Bay. Jennifer, Kyle's wife, joined us. We talked about work, about life, about memories. Remember when we were kids? Kyle said, and we'd fight over everything? You mean when you'd take credit for my ideas? I teased. He laughed. Yeah, I was kind of a brat. Kind of? Mother reached across the table and took both our hands. I'm grateful we found our way back. I'm grateful I didn't lose you, Cheryl. I came so close. We all came close, I said, but we didn't. That's what matters. Later, driving home through Seattle's streets, I thought about the journey, from that family dinner where Kyle laughed at my offer, through the lawsuit and betrayal, to this place of peace. It hadn't been easy. I'd lost things that couldn't be recovered. Time, trust, innocence. But I'd gained things too. Strength, clarity, authentic relationships. I pulled into my parking garage, not the old apartment but a condo I'd bought downtown. As I walked to the elevator, my phone buzzed. Marcus. Portfolio company just got acquisition offer. $400 million. You called it 3 years ago. I smiled. Some things didn't change, the work continued. The investments paid off. The future kept coming. But now I was ready for it. Not hiding, not afraid, not pretending to be smaller than I was. Just Cheryl, investor, sister, daughter. Finally, honestly, completely myself. 3 years after the trial, I found myself back in Mother's living room for Sunday dinner, but everything was different now. The dining table that had once been a battlefield had become a place of genuine warmth. Kyle arrived with Jennifer and their 6-month-old daughter, Emma. I'd been there when she was born, holding my brother's hand in the hospital waiting room while he paced nervously. Being an aunt changed something in me, softened edges I didn't know I had. Traffic was crazy, Kyle said, settling Emma into her carrier. Seattle's getting worse. Or you're getting old and complaining more, I teased. He grinned. Both can be true. Mother emerged from the kitchen with a pot roast that smelled exactly like Dad's recipe. She'd been making it every Sunday, she said, as a way of keeping his memory alive properly. Not tainted by Graham's forged documents, which the FBI had conclusively proven were fabricated. Dad's reputation was intact, his legacy restored. We sat down to eat, passing dishes, talking over each other the way families do. TechStream had been acquired 6 months ago by a major tech company for $650 million. Kyle walked away with enough money to never work again, but he'd already started his next company. This time, he asked me to co-found it with him. So, I've been thinking about the new startup, Kyle said, helping himself to mashed potatoes. We need to hire a strong CFO. I know someone, I said. Worked with her on 2 portfolio companies. She's brilliant. Can you make an introduction? Already did. She's expecting your call. Jennifer laughed. You two are like a well-oiled machine now. It's weird after everything that happened. Growth is weird, I agreed. Mother raised her wine glass. To growth. To second chances. To family. We clinked glasses. Emma made a cooing sound, and we all laughed. After dinner, Kyle and I ended up on the back porch while Mother and Jennifer cleaned up despite my protests. The Seattle evening was cool, the sky turning purple and orange. Do you ever think about Graham? Kyle asked. Sometimes. He gets out in 5 years. Good behavior reduced his sentence. Are you worried? I considered that. No. He took his shot and failed. And honestly, what he did, in a twisted way, it forced me to stop hiding. To stand up for myself. I'm not grateful to him, but I learned from it. Kyle nodded slowly. I learned too, about humility, about listening, about not letting ego make decisions. He paused. I'm sorry I laughed at your offer that night. I replay it sometimes, wondering how different things would have been if I'd just said thank you. We can't change the past, we can only do better going forward. You sound like a fortune cookie. I shoved him playfully. Shut up. We laughed, and it felt easy, natural. Brotherhood and sisterhood rebuilt from ashes. The next day, I had a meeting at Apex Ventures. We were reviewing a potential investment in a biotech startup working on cancer treatment. The founder was a woman in her early 30s, brilliant but nervous, presenting to a room full of investors. After the pitch, I walked her out. You did great, I told her. I felt like I rushed through the financials. You hit all the key points. Trust yourself more. She looked at me with something like awe. You're kind of a legend, you know. What you went through, the lawsuit, everything. It's all over the industry. Legend is generous. I'm just someone who refused to quit. That's what makes you a legend. We approved her funding later that day. $2 million seed round. Watching another woman get her shot reminded me why I did this work. That evening, I had dinner with Amy. Our friendship had fully healed, stronger now for having been tested. She'd started her own consulting business, and I'd helped her with strategy and connections. So I have news, Amy said over wine. I'm getting married. What? When did this happen? She told me about Daniel, a man she'd met at a conference. They'd been dating for a year, keeping it quiet. I was genuinely happy for her. Will you be my maid of honor? She asked. Are you serious? Completely. You're my best friend, Cheryl. Through everything, even when I doubted you, you're still my person. I felt tears starting. Yes. Obviously, yes. We hugged, and I thought about all the ways life surprises you, how relationships break and heal, how nothing stays broken forever if you're willing to do the work. A few weeks later, I was invited to speak at a women's leadership conference in New York. The organizer wanted me to share my story, the lawsuit, the betrayal, the comeback. Standing on that stage, looking out at 1,000 women, I felt the weight of responsibility. These were people who looked to me for guidance, for hope. I spent years hiding my success, I told them. I thought being invisible kept me safe, but it didn't. It made me vulnerable because when everything fell apart, nobody knew who I really was. I had no advocates, no allies, no one to vouch for my character. I talked about the lawsuit, about Graham's manipulation, about family betrayal, about hitting rock bottom and having to decide whether to surrender or fight. The lesson I learned isn't about venture capital or startups or even family. It's about authenticity. When you hide your true self, you give others power over you. When you stand openly in your truth, even when it's terrifying, you take that power back. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, dozens of women lined up to talk to me. Each had their own story of hiding, of being dismissed, of fighting to be seen. One woman, probably in her 50s, grabbed my hands. I've been minimizing my accomplishments for 25 years. Tomorrow, I'm telling my family what I've really built. Thank you for showing me it's possible. That moment, right there, made everything worth it. Every painful day of the lawsuit, every public humiliation, every betrayal. If my struggle helped even one person step into their light, it mattered. Flying back to Seattle, I looked out the airplane window at clouds and sky and thought about Dad. He'd been gone 5 years, but I still talked to him sometimes in my head. I think you'd be proud, I whispered. Not because of the money or the success, but because I learned to stand up, to fight for myself, to be honest about who I am. I imagined he'd smile, say something like, "Always knew you had it in you, sweetheart." 6 months later, Kyle's second startup launched. This time, no stolen code, no shortcuts, everything built ethically from the ground up. I was listed publicly as co-founder and chief strategy officer. The launch party was at a venue overlooking Puget Sound. Investors, employees, press, everyone who'd been part of the journey. Kyle gave a speech thanking the team, thanking Jennifer, thanking me. My sister taught me that success without integrity is just a house of cards waiting to fall, he said. She showed me what real strength looks like. This company exists because she gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. People applauded. I felt my face flush, uncomfortable with praise but also grateful. Afterward, Mother found me on the balcony. Your father would be so proud of both of you, she said softly. I wish he could see this. Me too. She hesitated, then said, I owe you an apology, not just for believing Kyle during the lawsuit, but for years before that, for making you feel like you had to hide your success, for favoring him because he was the son, because he had the fancy degree, because society told me he was the one who'd succeed. Mom, let me finish. You were brilliant all along. You just did it quietly, without fanfare. And I was too blind to see it. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I hugged her, both of us crying a little. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have paid attention. I should have believed in you the way I believed in him. You're paying attention now. That's what matters. We stood together watching the sun set over the water, mother and daughter, healing old wounds one conversation at a time. A year after the launch, the new company was valued at $100 million. Kyle and I were profiled together in Forbes magazine, the sibling investors who turned betrayal into business success. The article was fair, covering both the lawsuit and our reconciliation. It ended with a quote from Kyle. The best investment I ever made was admitting I was wrong and asking my sister for forgiveness. And one from me. Family is messy and complicated, but it's also where the most important work happens. Business success is meaningless if you've lost the people you love. The article went viral. We got calls from dozens of other family businesses dealing with similar conflicts. Some wanted advice, others just wanted to know it was possible to heal. I started speaking more about family dynamics in business, about the unique challenges of working with siblings or parents. A publisher reached out about writing a book. I was considering it. Meanwhile, Apex Ventures continued to grow. We were now managing over $500 million in assets under management. Our portfolio included 23 companies, with 3 successful exits in the last year alone. But I'd learned balance. Work was important, but it wasn't everything. I made time for family dinners, for Amy's wedding planning, for being an aunt to Emma. I dated, casually but honestly. I stopped hiding any part of my life. One evening, I got a message from an unknown number. My heart jumped, wondering if it was Graham, but it wasn't. Hi Cheryl, you don't know me. My name is Daniel Brennan Jr. I'm the son of Daniel Brennan, the Neural Path founder. I wanted to thank you for making things right with my mother. The licensing agreement and equity stake changed her life. She's able to honor my dad's work now. Thank you for being honorable when you didn't have to be. I wrote back, your father's work was brilliant. I'm sorry for what happened to it, and I'm glad we could make it right. Your mother's contribution to TechStream made it better. Please tell her thank you. His response. She says you're one of the good ones. High praise from her. I smiled, saved the message, added it to a folder I kept of moments that mattered. 5 years after that horrible family dinner, I found myself at another family dinner. But this time, Emma was running around the house, almost 5 years old and full of energy. Kyle's second child, a boy named Marcus after my assistant, was 2. Aunt Cheryl, watch this, Emma demanded, showing me a cartwheel. Amazing, I applauded. She beamed and ran off to show Jennifer. Kyle sat down next to me. Do you ever think about how close we came to losing all of this? All the time. I almost destroyed our family because I couldn't handle the fact that my little sister was more successful than me. You didn't destroy it. We survived it. There's a difference. He smiled. When did you get so wise? When I stopped hiding and started living honestly. Mother called us to dinner. As we gathered around the table, Emma insisted on sitting next to me. She chattered about kindergarten, about her friends, about the bugs she'd found in the backyard. This, I thought, this is what I fought for. Not the money or the business or the vindication. This. Family, love, second chances, honest relationships built on truth instead of secrets. After dinner, as I drove home through Seattle's streets, I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the lawsuit, the loss, the rebuilding. All of it had led here, to a life I didn't have to hide anymore. My phone rang. It was Janet Cross, my investigator. "Graham's up for parole next month," she said. "Thought you should know. Thanks for the heads up. Are you worried?" I thought about it. No. He took everything from me once, and I rebuilt. I'm not afraid of him anymore. Good, because you shouldn't be. You're stronger than he ever gave you credit for. After hanging up, I realized something profound. Graham had tried to destroy me by exposing my secrets and turning my family against me. But in doing so, he'd actually freed me. He'd forced me to stop hiding, to fight for myself, to stand openly in my truth. The thing he thought was my weakness, my secret success, became my strength once I stopped hiding it. I parked in my building's garage and walked to the elevator, thinking about tomorrow, another pitch meeting, another opportunity to help a founder realize their dreams. Another day of doing what I loved, openly and honestly. As I unlocked my condo door, I whispered to myself, "You made it. You're okay. Better than okay." And for the first time in my life, I completely believed it. The journey from that family dinner where Kyle laughed at my offer to this moment of peace and authenticity had been brutal, but it taught me something invaluable. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And sometimes, the hardest thing you'll ever do is stand up to the people you love and say, "I deserve better." I did deserve better, and I fought until I got it. That's the lesson I want to leave with you. Whether it's family, work, or any relationship, never make yourself smaller to make others comfortable. Your success doesn't need to hide in shadows. Your achievements don't need to apologize. Your worth doesn't need validation from people who refuse to see it. Stand tall, stand honest, stand strong. And when people try to tear you down, as they inevitably will, remember that authenticity is armor, truth is power, and dignity can't be taken, only given away. Don't give it away. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever felt like you had to hide your success or make yourself smaller to keep peace? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories about resilience, family, and finding your way back from rock bottom. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, knowing we're not alone in our struggles is the first step toward healing. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you walk away from this, knowing that no matter how dark things get, no matter how much you lose, you can rebuild, you can heal. You can stand in your truth and thrive. Take care of yourselves, believe in yourselves, and never, ever let anyone convince you that your light is too bright. Until next time, I'm Cheryl, reminding you that the best investment you'll ever make is in your own authenticity.